Good morning, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the weekly energies with today's Monday's Musings on the 14th of April 2025. I've needed to take a moment, well, I didn't need to, I chose to take a moment to catch my breath. Leading up to this video, this weekend in fact, I have been up and down more times than I care to count and that has left me slightly out of breath on many levels, which feels really poignant as we enter into what is known as the Holy Week, an opportunity to take stock, to pause, to be with everything that has risen, for want of a better term, to be cleansed and moved on from, renewed, reborn from. Now I would love that to be what it is I'm going to discuss. However, tuning into the information this morning, other than the being out of breath and the fact that I'm being guided to use not only the mythical tarot deck, but the Sacred Rebels Oracle, I am being invited to look at the more unrealistic stories that we are being part of and what it is we're truly rebelling against or not, as the case may be. We may feel this week as if we are shifting things and changing things, deeply rooted in narratives that have got us this far, that have been the structure that we have lived our life towards, but that could, for many, have become quite dogmatic in the decisions that we make as a result. One of the key things is to be open this week. I have a long list of things that I've written down because it came through in a very different manner. However, the truth is I'm not looking at it, and what's coming through now in this present moment is not different, but more embodied because of the experience. And that's the other thing this week. If we cling to the things that we think we need to share and what things need to be about, we're not going to be open enough to receive the more integrated experience of that. That doesn't mean not to include it, but to really recognize what has changed as a result of the information we have been gifted. And I feel that in my chest. An awareness and a longing and a real heart expansion opening between the higher, more evolved heart and the throat for us to see, truly see the holiness of ourselves, to truly see the light that we are, to truly see the changes that have occurred. And that, when I sense into that, I can really feel deeply into the root chakra, a beautiful opening between us and the earth beneath us, between us and our mother figures, between us as the mother that we are, between us and how we are nurturing everything that we have created, quite often without knowing. There is a temptation to figure out what that means, and what I would suggest this week is to keep coming back into the heart. There's an incredible nurturing, held, loving presence that is wisdom, wisdom that is available. Someone outside has just sneezed, which is what I want to bring through. Some of the information coming through today, I naively actually expected it to be in relation to Easter. You know, today we are Holy Monday, which I've looked up and obviously recognised that it's related to the cleansing of the temple, when Jesus went in and cleansed the temple. Now, I could take you off on a whole other tangent of the information that's come through with that, and why don't I? Okay, so for a long time, from childhood actually, I would see the scene, you know, that's portrayed in a lot of the films of Jesus turning over the tables, of being very angry with how monetized spirituality had become. religion had become, the way of his father or God or source, however you want to look at it, the divine had become. And from a child, that almost became a part of my mission, which I'm just realizing now, taking that on board to carry. It became part of what I do and who I am, offering what I can to anyone, regardless of financial position or educational position or anything like that. I have received many insights throughout the years of needing to see things from a different angle with that. And the last recognition that came to me probably about a year ago was in this scene in particular. Jesus was angry, and that it's okay to be angry. So really honing in for me that inner wound of needing to be perfect. Where am I going with this? Sometimes we can use role models, be that influencers on social media or archetypes within our society, to determine the very path that we walk. And in doing so, we can lose sight of our own beauty and try to become perfection in their form. I'm not suggesting that we don't love like Jesus. What I'm suggesting is we love like ourselves fully as much as we can, because that is the teachings, to be who we are and to be open in our expression of love. That is individual for us all. Don't lose sight of your own unique place in the energy that you are trying to portray or connect with. Now, the reason I share that, other than my neighbour sneezing outside, part of the call to use the Sacred Rebel deck is my own understanding, which is going to be key this week, your own understanding of what holy is, your own understanding of what divinity is. And I feel that in my sacral, your own understanding and connection, understanding that your own understanding is how you connect to creativity, to life, to source, to religion, spirituality, abundance, love, whatever you want to call it. Acknowledge that, honor that. Live by your own truth. That is just as sacred as any other truth. The reason I'm going to use the Sacred Rebel deck is, for me, the archetype of Jesus also comes with an essence of the Heyoka, the sacred clown. Many indigenous tribes believe that Jesus was a two-legged Heyoka, that he came for us to look at different ways of perceiving things. Now, I share that, one, because that's the deck I'm going to use, but also I was hoping to talk all about Easter, to talk all about renewal and rebirth and, spirituality, all the things I'm comfortable with or believe that I'm comfortable with, all the things that I have carried for a very long time. However, the guidance coming through today is to recognize two things. One, it is World Quantum Day. Now, I'm going to go into this without trying to get too lost or dive in over my head, and hope that the guidance is there. And the moment I say it, I know that it is. Recognizing as well that guidance may not always come through in the more usual advisors. It may not always come through in Christ-like consciousness. You may get insights that are more psychological or scientific or nature-based this week. All is holy. All is part of the divine. It's not about separating science and religion, but recognizing they have their roots all in the same tree. So what was coming through today, with it being World Quantum Physics Day, is to recognize, and I've written it down here, to recognize it's being celebrated first and foremost on the 14th of April. Now, the reason it gets celebrated on the 14th of April every year is, I've put here, to do with Planck's constant, which was a theory from Max Planck's, and it's all about the nature of energy and photons in relation to their frequency. So first and foremost, coming into the nature of our own identity in relation to what we give off, in relation to who we are, in relation to what we portray. One of the biggest things this week with the full moon, they're taking me in all different directions, which will bring me on to the next thing. The full moon in Libra this weekend was very much about standing in your own vibration and acknowledging where you may not have been as integral as that could be, and where you may be being affected by relationships externally, as an opportunity to reconnect to that wisdom within you. So, quantums. Okay. The other thing that I've wrote about here, What is quantum? It's obviously about the discrete quantity of energy in proportion to its magnitude and the frequency of radiation it represents, the momentum or the electric charge. So when we think about quantum energy, when we think about atoms and particles and who we are, how balanced are we in relation to the energy that we're giving off? This week I've been shown a lot of incidences where people are over-promising and underachieving. Now, that isn't a negative concept. That isn't a positive ideology either. It is about acknowledging what you are capable of, being true with that. And the only way that we can do that is to stand in our frequency, to really be aware of what is going on. The body knows the truth, right? You cannot lie. So to your physical self, if you're feeling as if something is too much, if that has been shown to you by external circumstances, look at the reaction. Is the reaction occurring and being pushed out of you, or are you bringing it inside and restoring that balance? Are you in harmony with what you are claiming to be? Quantum Day, right? The other thing that Google had decided to do was to focus on superposition. Again, this is way over my head, so bear with me. And that feels really important, to investigate things that may feel as if they're a bit too overwhelming this week with some curiosity, to allow it to lead you to a more expansive understanding of your universe, of your world, of yourself. Superposition, from what I can make out, and obviously if there's any real scientists there that understand this greater, I would love to hear from you. Superposition, from what I can make out in relation to this video, is the understanding that, unlike, I've put it here, unlike entanglement, it's not that we just switch states based on our environment. You know, we are so often believed that when we see something, we feel something and that affects us, and absolutely. But superposition is more about the fact that we can be more than one vibration at any given time. We can be more than one state of energy at any given time, which means we can be more than one potential at any given time. Why is that important? Well, when we talk about things like Easter week, we have the real undercurrent story of sacrifice, of restoring balance, and of rebirth. There is always more to a narrative than meets the eye. You know, we can go down the line of Judas and the incredible energy that that brings forth. We can go down the line of Mary as an archetype. Okay, I can see where they're going. We can go down the line of those that have created the circumstances for the sacrifice. We can even go down the line of the omnipresent God or Father, or we can acknowledge that they all come from one atom, one molecule, one idea, one inspiration, one creation, one story, one life, one world, one way of being, ourselves included. The more we can get our head around the idea that we are more than our stories, we are more than what is happening around us, but do so in a physical, present situation, the more expansive our potential is going to be this week. The more choices we're going to have on what it is we are choosing to rebirth. I'm seeing the analogy of the same shit just wrapped up in a different package. Okay, so being very, very aware of that this week. Now, the other more humorous thing I want to bring you to, which is obviously where this energy is going, is it's also World Puffin Day. So on the one extreme, we can have this deep understanding of life and nature and atoms and why things happen and why we're affected by things and the decisions that are available there. On another level, we can have the spiritual concept of it being about rebirth and, you know, sacrifice and what it is we're willing to let go of. And then on the other level, the more physical level, we have the puffin. We have the animalistic emotional nature this week. And now I can see the Holy Trinity. Okay, now I can see what's going on with the logic, the mind, the soul and the body. Okay, the Holy Trinity that is really experiencing big shifts this week. The puffin. Now, the puffin as a symbol, known as little brother, which I didn't know because it represents the monk-like outfit that it wears with its wings. The puffins mate for life. So there's an element here this week of faithfulness, devotion and loyalty, but a truth to what concept we are linking that to. I don't want to get into something as shallow as is it being received, because it goes beyond that. It goes beyond what we are giving and what we are receiving. I'm very aware of the time. It goes beyond what we are receiving and what we are giving. And again, I'm aware of taking vast information and trying to condense it. Okay, so trusting this week, whatever needs to get across will get across. Today, particularly on the 14th of April, Juno goes retrograde into Scorpio. Now, what that means is, much as we've gone through the Libra full moon, we've looked at relationships, we've felt the pain of not being in balance with the love that we give and what we receive, the work that we give and what we get back. We've been there. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that that's it. Juno goes retrograde. So it has all been an invitation this weekend to really feel into what's underneath it. What's underneath it? A longing, a yearning to connect on a more sacred level, be that to each other or ourselves. But that comes from acknowledging what's going on for us. Are we in the stage of entanglement? Are we being affected by our environment? Are we reacting? Are we saying, actually, that hurt, so I'm going to reflect that back with pain in my actions? Or are we being more in that superposition where we can say, okay, I see that, I feel that. That is triggering that from my past and that part of me, and that's making me want to do that part of me, but there's also that that's going on and that's going on, and really expanding our options, not only in how we react, what we create, what we create, but the person that we are and the perception that we have of that. If we continue to act from our wounds, if we continue to do the same things that we would do in every other situation, that's awareness. Yeah, that's awareness of the wound, that's awareness of the pain, that's awareness of stopping the pain temporarily. It's a little bit like hanging on the cross, right? It's a surrender. This is what's caused me pain. This is what I'm letting go of. I'm being ready to be transformed, to be reborn. But that comes from deciding the person you're going to be afterwards. What you are experiencing, what you are bringing forth as a result of that, how open you are, how light you are. This week is a wonderful opportunity to feel into that, and to do so with the archetype, believe it or not, of the puffin. Now, the puffin I've written here, they mate for life. So again, looking at that loyalty, looking at how we may feel if we decide to do something different. Who do we feel we're betraying if we decide to do something different? What is the cost to that, to ourselves? Are we being loyal to ourselves? Are we being faithful in our actions? When a puffin mates for life, I've written here, when they're trying to attract something, they're very bright. Their colours stand out. They're very seen. When they attract what it is they want, they then go within with that partner. They then go within to that situation, and their colours fade. And that is a sign, according to this, for puffins as an emblem of faithfulness. It isn't always about being center stage, saying this hurt, this is what I'm going to do, this is going to be my reaction. Sometimes it is about taking it in and deciding how you're going to manifest from that, how you're going to conceive with that, and showing the world that it's okay to go within. Showing the world, particularly this week, I feel real essence, as I say, of that nurture type energy, that it's okay to be tired, that it's okay to take a step back, that it's okay to be human, that it's okay to walk away from things that don't serve you. A lot of the times we explain what we're doing because we believe we need to prove that it's okay to do that. A lot of the times we over-talk our truth from a place of not necessarily believing it. The other thing with puffins, they are committed to family, and they long to strive in a safe, content home that is made of equal responsibility for raising the future. We cannot be equal in the future that we raise if we're all the same. It's that entanglement. We cannot hope for something different if we are going to react from something externally and become the same energy. If someone has triggered you in whatever way. An example, this morning I've had a few incidences where I have been shown that a lot of my gifts are not being seen externally, and that's an opportunity to reflect on whether or not I see them internally, but taking them a little bit further rather than getting caught up in the judgment of I can't believe X, Y, and Z. Changing the narrative, the way to change that is for me to see my own skills and to have confidence in that and to take that forward. It doesn't matter whether the external energy believes that. It doesn't matter whether the external energy notices that change. What matters this week in particular is the internal vibration that is available to be shifted. Everything else will slot itself in. The other thing that's coming up, obviously the equal responsibility for raising the future, recognizing your individual role in that, standing in that, standing firm in that. Again, going back to what it is you believe about your source, God, Christ consciousness, your light, what it is you are being guided to take forward here and from what level. Did I think I would be talking about puffins and Jesus in the same context? Of course not. But acknowledging what comes through is for you and allowing that to guide you forward, because that is our responsibility in how we have the ability to respond. We are channeling in, we are creating with information, not to be the same as each other, but to expand our own potential. Again, it's that superposition to see just how many variants are available and decide from there on a more informed consent, because we know where we are, we know who we are, rather than the pain and the wound, the expansiveness that's around that. Okay, so the other thing, which is quite welcome, is the fact that the puffin is called the clown of the sea, the clown of the emotions because of the beak. But this weekend has been particularly heavy for many of us, myself included, acknowledging where we may need to lighten that up by looking at the world that we've been carrying up until this point. So I go full circle back to the acknowledgement that today, with the cleansing of the temple, that's something that I've carried since childhood, unknown. And a lot of the things with the superposition of quantum physics is it's an unknown vibration that is being carried, that is actually affecting. I did write something down about it. Where is it? No, I can't find it. But it's the unknown energy that we are carrying this week that is being asked to be looked at. Okay, there are many ways to see the same message and the same image coming in. Take, for example, light. We receive light from light. We receive light from this camera in front, from the sun, all these different forms of light, but it's still light. That is superposition atoms. So all this information that we're receiving that's coming in different ways, okay, brilliant, great, but what's underneath it all for you? What does it mean underneath it all for you? Who you are and your greatest potential. This week, if it doesn't feel as if it's leading you that way, being honest to yourself, faithful to yourself, having the humor to be able to say, actually, that isn't where I'm going. This is where I want my emotions to lead me. And being open to that. The puffin is a mixture of the air and water elements, so really initiating our thoughts and our emotions in one, rather than fighting them against each other. And that is where I see a lot of conflict actually externally, and making the choice to focus on what's in front of me right now. And if that wishes to come through, it will. The puffins do a lot about physical communication. So a puffin will rub beaks in mating process. A puffin will obviously puff its chest out when it's aggressive. A puffin will also go very withdrawn with its head down when it's trying to get from A to B. So looking this week at your own body language and your own communication, what are you saying to the world? Is it matching what is going on for you internally? Are you in alignment with any conversations that are being had or that perhaps need to be had? With Juno going retrograde into Scorpio, going deep into your emotions, figuring out what it is you now wish to take forward, what it is you now wish to connect to, and ensuring that you do so with yourself first and foremost. The puffin is also very much about working with children, and the inner child is bound to come up this week because we're talking about Christ consciousness, and Christ consciousness very much, I feel like laughing, it very much has an innocence with light, and or at least it can be seen that way. Unconditional love can be seen as a very inner child young thing. really feeling into that this week, really holding space for that, acknowledging the sheer power that it takes to have unconditional love for ourselves and for each other, and the ferocity that is available behind that, not the rage. Focusing on which one you want to take forward this week. Taking some time to acknowledge your own health, your own self-care, and coming back to your true self. The body will show you. The body will show you where you may be out of alignment this week. Again, taking a few breaths up and down this weekend has been very inviting to look at my own levels of fitness on many, many levels. The puffin is also about standing our ground, devotion, expression, grace, humor, communication, renewal, and transformation. So acknowledging that pretty much everything in life, right, is about renewal and transformation, but doing so with some humor and some gentility and some fun and some curiosity. Resilience there and resourcefulness, of course. And that's pretty much, I think, all that I've written on that. And I think that's probably enough, 25 minutes in. So this week, finding an opportunity to bring full circle the information that has come through, finding a structure that works for you, ensuring that it isn't too dogmatic, that it doesn't restrict your potential, and that it isn't based on external events, that it isn't, you don't become what everyone thinks you've always been, okay, or basing it on the reaction of others. Acknowledge your own worth internally so that you can really step into the vastness of your super position, or the superposition that puts you in. Okay, so how am I going to do that? I'm going to look at the cards and navigate a way of appreciating the energy this week. That feels like the key. That feels like that's how we can really make the most of it. Okay. On an individual level. And as I say, I'm going to do that with the Mythical Tarot deck. These were in the bottom of it took packing some of my belongings away and sorting through what I needed and what I didn't to find this deck, actually. They're underneath it all, which feels quite poignant. When we put things to one side, when we decide what it is we want to carry forward or not, what can we find under that? Who can we find under that? Okay. It's not about trying to shift or make that version better. It's about bringing that part of us home now. Yes, okay, so the other thing I wanted to share, some of the guidance coming through for this year. Obviously, it's the year of 9, which is the completion. And I have said over and over and over that doesn't mean change. That doesn't mean the end or beginning of cycles. That's 10. 9 is every step that is needed to lead us into that, which is completion, integration. But this morning, I was going to say this year, but it was this morning, I had a real deeper respect for acknowledging that that means to bring every single part of us home. The more we can do that, the more we can be complete in who we are. The decisions are going to take a real swift, full shift rather than the sneaky peek initiations that we've been made aware of. The 8 of Cups and the Ace of Pentacles. Yes, in regards to any physical beginnings that we're trying to bring forth now, it's not about letting go. It's about bringing back who we were underneath it all. There are some things that we cannot change. There are, no matter how much they may not appeal to us, there are some parts of ourselves, our psyche, our mind, our body, or whatever, that will only shift in acceptance. Okay. So energies this week and how to best navigate them. 8 of Pentacles underneath. In this deck in particular, you can see that this character, and this is where I really feel a banging on the third eye, actually. You can see that he's hammering away at physical wealth here. And it's what that's done is almost like a nagging headache. And there's tension in my shoulders as a result in the third eye. And then I can see the boulder moving away from the cave, where Christ was buried, almost in the third eye as well, not buried, but entombed in the third eye. So this week there is a need to stop working at things that are standing in the way of the perception that we have always had of ourselves, and allowing that to come back. Recognizing that mastery is an infinite, ongoing process, but it's not linear. It's not a direct focused force. Mastery is more about acknowledging where what we have discovered has impacted who we are. And only from there, smack bam in the middle of the infinite figure in this present moment, can we see whether that's a force for good or whether there's more work to be done there. All the snippets that we've taken away from ourselves, all the bits that we've changed or tried to fix, has that added to who we are? Has that brought forth a completion and an acceptance and a wholeness? Or are we banging away at external, physical, outer worth here? Is that mastery of what and by whom? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Overall, there is a longing to take more than what is needed this week. There is a longing to do more than is needed this week. There is a lack of recognition in regards to worth this week and what has already occurred. When shuffling the cards, I wanted to take more than was needed. I feel like I'm straightening out the blanket that they were wrapped in, covering my knees and getting cozy. I can feel a real grandmotherly type energy coming in that just wants to rub my knees and just soothe and just calm this underlying wound around worth that has caused, and I feel that in my chest, that has caused so much sacrifice, so much pain, so much separation, ironically to our own sovereignty, regardless of how it may seem. Overall, we have the King of Wands, and the King of Wands here is sat not engulfed by his own flame, interesting, not engulfed by his own fame, not engulfed by his own flame of inspiration, but able to hold it to one side, to see it for what it is, for others to see that as well, but also with the permission of allowing others to see who we are beyond our spiritual nature, our vulnerability, our humanness. That is to be sovereign. We so often get caught up in the spiritual side of things being without getting caught up in physical life. This week is an opportunity to act from a fully embodied presence, which means to accept our humanness also, to be grounded and firm in that. As many things come to a culmination in regards to our actions, and this card in particular, the King of Wands, actually looks quite feminine. So in regards to our intuition, are we acting from a heart place? Are we grounded in our own resolution? Are we supported by the person that we are becoming? On the Monday, we have our first major arcana, and I feel confusion there, and it's the Hanged Man. I feel as though so much has been tried. I feel as though so much has been given. I feel as though so much has been hoped for, longed for, loved even. I feel forsaken on the Monday with the Hanged Man. And I feel the promise of that if we can allow ourselves to experience it's not even surrender, it's openness to what is trying to come through now. Surrender means that we don't believe anything will change and we're just happy to let go of any expectation. It doesn't feel like that on the Monday. What it actually feels like on the Monday is an expansion. It feels as if the surrender is to actually expand. We can't do that if we restrict ourselves or each other in how we perceive the situations around us. There's great potential this week, this year even, to really move forward with creative, innovative ideas. But not if we don't open up to our own imagination. Not if we don't go that bit further and really look I want to say we don't know what anyone else is going through, but the opportunity there is to see. The opportunity there is to expand our vision by really, really acknowledging what is going on for us instead of a knee-jerk reaction. This is being taken, this is being sacrificed, this is being threatened, I must protect, defend. On the Monday, releasing all of that. On the Monday, being fully present with where you may find yourself, even if it isn't pleasant. Being truthful and honest is the only way we are going to receive the different vision we are searching for here. There is a lot that is ending. A lot of, in this card, we have the sunset and the kestrel as well. There is a lot that is ending. But that will not occur if we continue to repeat the things that we don't want to take forward. So that could be a world where you have to defend yourself, then stop defending. That could be a world where you don't want to try so hard, then stop trying so hard. That could be a world where all you get is confusion when you're seeking clarity, then stop seeking clarity from the areas that give you confusion. Taking responsibility for that on the Monday. It may feel as if we're letting go, but what we're actually doing is making an informed consent or choice to not carry on the way things are. On the Tuesday, of course, that's going to bring up the Five of Pentacles. That's going to bring up all the feelings that we've tried to avoid. That's going to bring up, well, my needs aren't met. That's going to bring up, well, I need to take more care of myself. That's going to bring up, if we choose to focus on it like that, of course, we can focus on, I'm not getting what I need from other people, or we can decide to say, actually, I need to meet my own needs here. On the Tuesday, it's going to bring up the undercurrent decision that needs to be made. The more empowering energy of whether it's entanglement and we're affected by our environment, or whether we can choose to see, yes, we can be affected by our environment, but we choose the effect on the Tuesday. Sometimes it can be better to walk away. You can see here this character, better to walk away with nothing in a situation than continue to fuel, to fund for some, to invest in energies that do nothing but make you feel more poor than you've ever felt. Whether that's time, compassion, understanding, our own beliefs included. Which brings me on to the Wednesday, which is the Seven of Swords. Our own beliefs included. What are we carrying? A lot of these are hidden here, and it makes them seem bigger than they are. That's the thing with the shadow. Half the reason to do shadow work is to bring forth those things we might not want to see, to sit with them, to hold court for them, to be present with them so that they are no longer hidden. When something is hidden, it has greater power. There is a big difference between awareness and consciousness. There is a big difference between this is why I act, this is the wound that's being triggered. The conscious part is, okay, and this is the decision I'm going to make to change it. Does it change it? And the way that you know whether or not something is changing is because of how you feel. Do you feel complete? Do you feel whole in the choices that you make? Or do you feel as if you're missing out, as if something is lacking, as if you're not quite connected? Then something hasn't changed here. What needs to come back in order to complete that cycle? And it will be part of our shadow. It will be that part that has been hurt before in the past because of external triggers. It's not about pushing that to one side. It's about acknowledging that we're carrying it anyway, to give it space, to give it room to be heard. On the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that brings forth the Ten of Wands. And here you can see the original King of Wands that doesn't see that he's the king. Yeah, so the energy overall, the King of Wands. Here you can see he's surrounded by all the hard work, all the endurances, all the creative responsibilities, all the stories that have been carried. When I said about Jesus cleansing the temple, I've carried that. I know I've carried that in my own archetype. I know in my own body I have carried that. And that's been wonderful. That's really helped me walk a path that I wouldn't choose any differently. However, to acknowledge that I'm carrying that and then not change that, come the Thursday, that's going to bring forth a real heaviness, a real turning point. It's the Ten of Wands, a real choice. What are we going to do with that? What are we going to take forward with that? Are we just going to continue to carry the wounding and the pain and the injustice of something, or are we going to do our part to create harmony? And that starts from within. That starts from that choice to say, actually, which one, the King of Wands this week, which one am I going to take forward? What have I discovered? Well, for me, I've discovered that spirituality has no restrictions, whether that's money or, oh, my ears ringing, education or physical abilities. It has no restriction, including Jesus. You know, that we all feel anger, that none of us are perfect, that we are all, ear ringing again, open to learning about the unconditional love that we are in any given moment. It's not about letting go of the stories this week, but what have they shown you about yourself? You can carry around the triggers and the trauma, or you can decide upon the beauty underneath it all that has been hidden until ready to receive it. It's entirely up to you come the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. On the Friday, yeah, it does look like we have taken that opportunity physically. We have picked up whatever we've been given as a gift rather than as a curse. And I say that particularly when it comes to things like empathy or the ability to read the room, or, you know, there's a fine line between psychic and traumatized, right? There's a fine line between spirituality and not acknowledging our physical presence. This week, particularly on the Friday, on the Good Friday, what have you been given? What is it you're being asked to carry, to grow from, to nurture, to take care of, to share with others? What brings you light? What brings you love? What brings you joy? Why would you want to restrict that? If you truly knew the essence of what it is you hold within you, your light, if you truly understood that from a more mature perspective, there's no need to defend. There's no need to receive confirmation of that, because you understand it. And on Friday, that is the seed that we're being given. I want to say it may not feel like it, but I am aware that that's some of my own as well. So whatever you are given on the Friday, acknowledge what is coming up for you first before sharing it, to ensure that you don't do so in a defensive, inner child wounded way. 41. On Saturday, we have the 5 of Swords here. Okay, so a real lightning bolt epiphany moment. This is why all these different thoughts have been all over the place. This is where they're coming from. This is what I can do with it. And it may take us back. You can see the character here is almost taken back, quite shocked. I'm being reminded of, so this is the Saturday, right? On the Sunday, obviously we have Easter Sunday, but I'm being reminded of how it must have felt to see something come back to life. How it must have felt to see where all these things have been headed in the resurrection of the Christ. How it must feel when, for our ancestors, when that sun comes up first thing in the morning. Can we reinstill that magic, that awe, that, wow, look at this with ourselves? Can we see mentally where all these things have taken us? Can we take a moment, take stock, sit back and observe ourselves truly? Because that's the turning point on the Saturday. Mentally as well. Really acknowledging what holds all our thoughts together. What energy is behind everything that we think. On the Sunday, we have our second major arcana, which is the Chariot card, which is a beautiful energy to end with. So we start with the Hanged Man at the beginning of the week, that having to take time out to pause, to really look at what's going on, to understand the perspective that we are taking forward. And at the end of it, the end of the week, we have the Chariot, which is that opportunity to move forward with both our shadow and our light, knowing that it is that navigates each other. We talk about injustice and we talk about fairness and equilibrium. That harmony comes from within, by understanding that it is the light and the shadow that takes us forward. It is those forsaken moments that open us up to what we need. It is those moments of anger, that sacred rage that helps us to really look at what we believe and how that's being portrayed. It is the understanding of the hidden things that we have carried that helps us to let go of what we no longer want to take forward. Okay, so we have two major arcanas, the Hanged Man and the Chariot, looking this week at areas where we may feel as if nothing has changed, and really being quite truthful, acknowledging what has shifted, what has moved, or perhaps what needs to in order to do that. It may not be our actions, it's the Hanged Man. It may be how open we are to the frustration, the despair, the pain that we are able to feel and then move on from. I don't want to get too caught up in it because I'm aware of the time, but with the Chariot, I'm also being really drawn to the wisdom that whatever is happening this week in particular, by the end of this week, is what's going to lead us into 2026, because it is related to the energy of the horse. So acknowledging that a horse has incredible mirror neurons in its brain, and it will very much pick up on its environment just like humans, but it has a huge heart and it trusts the heart coherence. This week, are we going to reflect and be the same as what our environment is, or are we going to come back into our heart and let that expand to bring forth the wisdom, the intuitive emotional wisdom that is going to take us forward? We have one, it's going to be intense, it's coming through in many different ways, acknowledging that, but also having sovereignty. We don't have to take on board all the understandings, all the opinions. We don't have to know it all. We don't have to know it all. It's about experiencing things in the moment. We don't have to wait until we are completely ready, because what that does is that really caves us in with all these different ways of being, all these different understandings, all these different paths that we've taken, and actually stops us from moving forward. So acknowledging throughout everything this week, whatever has occurred, what one thing has kept you going, what one thing has given you resilience, what one thing are you choosing to be faithful with? Take that forward. In the wand cards, we then have 1, 2 sword cards. So beautiful, no, sorry, 3 sword cards. So the creativity actually comes from our mind. It may not feel like that, particularly if we get caught up in the trauma and the pain. You know, the 3 of swords, we can decide whether the 3 of swords is heartbreak or the sacred heart. Is something tearing you apart, or is it opening you up in order to see things differently, particularly mentally this week? And that's where I realised that actually there is 2 sword cards in front of me, the 5 of swords and the 7 of swords. What I hadn't noticed was the 5 of pentacles sneaking behind, and I'd counted that as a thought. Okay, so being very aware of the lack mentality that is behind every thought that we have this week in regards to relationships or abundance or who we are and what it is we have to offer, because we have the 5 of swords and the 7 of swords here. If we want that turning point, it is about looking at how much we have actually endured mentally, what we have actually discovered, and what we are carrying, whether or not we know it. The difference between awareness and consciousness. Yes, we can be aware of something, but until we change the outcome, it's just awareness. Until we can consciously choose from an informed place, acknowledging what is actually forming within us, what we're actually feeling, what we're actually thinking, and what is leading the directive of our lives, particularly the hidden this week. It's that that's going to bring forth the balance and the difference between what we carry and what we do with it, the difference between what we see and what we choose to then move on with, what we create or are reborn into. We then have 2 pentacle cards. So the wands, the swords, and the pentacles, beautifully balanced. No water cards this week. I think a lot of us have done a lot of emotional stuff last week, but yeah, no water cards this week. So being mindful of that, drinking more water, because we still want to keep the elements balanced, and making time physically this week to honor the emotions that have passed feels like it will be quite poignant and restoring any harmony that we may seek, whether that's relationships or our work or our connection. So Page of Pentacles and the 5 of Pentacles, I want to put them back in the order that they came, and that feels quite important. Recognizing the order of something. If we have inherited a lack mentality, it's that we're going to hold on to as the seed for our future. So acknowledging where something has come from before we decide to choose it, and whether or not we take that forward. A lot of times we can take on things as our own, but they've been handed down to us. This week, it is an opportunity to decide whether we're going to continue that narrative. We can change it. We can still create an abundant narrative that has initially been born from one of lack. It takes great transformation and great transmutation. It takes consciousness, not awareness. It takes the heyoka way. It takes opposition. Okay, so if you're finding that actually everything around you is lack, the last thing you're going to do to change that is create more lack. So not restricting yourself, it would be about giving more to counterbalance, sorry, it may feel counterintuitive, but to counterbalance those injustices. This week, acknowledging that you can change what has been given to you, but not by doing the same thing. That doesn't change anything. Or you can decide that you don't want to carry it forward at all and let it go. It is really that simple if you let it be, okay? But it's the Five of Pentacles. It's a turning point. Does that mean it's going to happen straight away? Absolutely not. We're going to have moments throughout the week where we feel as if that change is possible, but it's going to depend on what we choose to carry within us, what's forming within us, and then the decisions that we make as a result. Okay, so whew. Eight of Pentacles right at the bottom. Work. I am going to pull one Sacred Rebel card. I have like 10 minutes. The clock is ticking. 10 minutes to do this card. And at the very bottom, I'm struggling to get the card out that's called Come to Life. Funny. Okay. Don't rush. There's time. There's time. What needs to be shared will be shared. Enjoy the process. How can I enjoy things that are sad? Well, you bring them into the body, you integrate them, you be with them. Only from there can you find any experiences that relate to that or any joy to be found. Right, one card this week. In regards to any completion, that feels quite important to have that end game, that end structure, that completion. Okay. So the card is called Release the Dark Wound, Let Love In. And you can see here that this character is letting go of the fish. I feel that in my chest. I feel like it's the Christ consciousness that we have known. I'm letting go of that, letting go of what it is we may have carried as a result of any inherent spirituality, any inherent belief of the universe around us, of source, of creation, be that scientific, be that more physically embodied in the nature and the environment around us, or be that more spiritual. Whatever it is that we've been holding on to that has dictated the world that we know, releasing the dark wound behind that and letting the love that was always there come in. I'm very aware that after the day that Jesus cleansed the temple, there's inspiration underneath it. I'm very aware of the day after Jesus cleansed the temple, he taught in the same temple on the Tuesday and predicted his own death, spoke of his own death and the ending of how he was seen, the ending of who he was going to be. Acknowledging this week, letting go of how something was, is what's going to bring forth something different, ourselves included. How we see ourselves. So let's see what 25 says. I want to look at the numerology actually of 25. So you have the 2 and the 5. You have the union of any lessons that we have discovered. You have the reconnecting to the Hierophant or any religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs, connections, faith, hope that we may have had. And it adds up to the 7. So it's that Chariot, but it's also any movement born forth from endurances. Doesn't mean that we take the endurances forward. What I see now is little donkey. Doesn't mean that we take the endurances forward, but it means that we have discovered what we needed to discover. We've reunited to the wisdom that was underneath all of the lessons. Taking that forward is the next step towards completion of our own spirituality. Are we the donkey? Are we Mary? Are we Jesus? Are we Joseph? Are we the innkeepers? Are we the separate parts of the story or the whole novel? Again, it's that going back to that superposition of our own understanding. So release the dark wound and let love in. If we detach, the other thing I want to share I will get round to the explanation of it. It feels quite important to know what something means to you first. The other thing I want to show you is this fish. Once it hits the water, what skin it did have, oh sorry, the meat is actually going onto the bones once it hits the water. Okay, so it reminds me of a story by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, which I recommend you read. It's called The Skeleton Woman. When something is unconditionally loved, when something is held space for, ourselves included, by ourselves, the flesh starts to come back onto the bones. The tissue, the sinew, the real life starts to grow, starts to take us back to our original physical source here. And that's what's happening with the fish. When we can let go of the wound, when we can allow ourselves to be held by our emotions behind it, things start to come back. The skin starts to come back. The realness of who we are starts to come back, and the rebirth is possible. If we detach something from its source too soon, trying to force it to become what it is not yet ready or willing to become, we can unintentionally sap it of its strength and kill it. There is a dark wound in the consciousness of humanity which demands perfection and denies process. If you are thinking of publishers before you've even written the book, if you are comparing your unfinished song idea to the latest best-selling pop release, if you have decided you are not good enough or worthy enough to succeed before you've given it anything you've got and asked for divine help, then this dark wound has you in its grasp. If you are trying to be Christ without walking the path, right? You know, it's all about that processing the information and your own experiences. You have to let go of the death grip of perfectionism and let yourself and your ideas live. Love is abundant, creative, and inspiring. It moves us so much more joyfully and creatively than fear. You are being asked to honour the path of your own love, which inspires you. What feels exciting, joyful, and perhaps even rather different? Let that live. Release the dark wounding of false belief. There are countless stories of vastly successful artists who very nearly binned the project they are making for their career because of their despair fostered by their own dark nature. They doubted. They were uncertain. Was their work any good? Was it useless? They struggled to believe in the right of a work to come to life, whether it was accepted, revered, or rejected by others or not. They nearly lost their work to fear. Undoubtedly, there have been many times when this has actually happened and the work was not served, not allowed to live. Do not let this happen to you. Whether something is meant to be commercially orientated or a more personal creation of your own, it must be allowed to be, without judgment, without criticism, even without premature evaluation. It must be allowed to be what it is, and only time, love, patience, and attention will reveal it. If you have drawn this card, along with the Oracle of Defend... Oh, no, that's not applicable. The message of this card, important, that along with the Oracle of Defend to the End. So defending to the end is not applicable because we haven't drawn that. And sometimes it can feel like that, right? Sometimes it can feel like we have to defend something right until the very end. Again, what are we being loyal to? Is it bringing us flesh and real nurture and wisdom and joy in our emotions, or is it stripping us to the bone where there's nothing left? Healing included, religion included, connection included, relationships, especially the ones with ourselves, included. The messages of this card are also amplified if you have drawn the oracle beyond the mind, the heartbeats, which again we haven't. So trust yourself to do what is needed in this process. It is drawn with the card inspiration, actually. Yes. So let's look at that. What is actually coming up for you in regards to this wound? How is it affecting the inspiration that you have or do not have, and the ideas that you are willing to take forward or not, as the case may be? Is it filling you with enthusiasm? Does it have magic, inspiration, synchronicity? Does it call to your heart? Whatever it is you're connecting to this week, does it call to your heart? Okay, so there's a healing process here, which I'm going to share and then close down this video. Placing your hands in prayer position at your heart, or lay them in your lap with palms facing upwards in a gesture of receiving, I invite you to say aloud, "May my inspired idea be blessed by the creative intelligence and love of this universe. May the perfection of divine timing govern the unfolding of this idea into its most beautiful and fulfilling form. May this idea attract the most nourishing people, situations, and opportunities, so that it may live out its destiny to make a positive contribution to the world. through sacred genius, love, and grace, so be it. And then when you're ready, take a moment to sit quietly and just say to yourself, I commit myself, body, heart, mind, and soul, to that which will illuminate me with golden inspiration and uplift me and those around me with love. I am open to receive all the support and protection needed to truly honour this commitment. So be it. We can decide to focus on the wound or what inspires us underneath it. The choice is always ours. Take care, and I'll see you next week.